Kia ora everyone, welcome to These Guys Got Next, our NBA basketball podcast where we dissect the NBA, deliver our takes and analysis from the bench. I'm Elijah Fa'afiu, he's Ravindu Pathirana. Ravi, I'm glad you're here today. You haven't been traded at the deadline, neither have I, so unfortunate for any of our listeners who were hoping for a change or anything, but we're still here on the same team. But so much has happened in terms of the trade deadline. Maybe just a quick check-in before we get into things. How's everything on your end? How was everything after the trade deadline for you?
Yeah, man, feels good. Feels like Miles Turner, 10 years of trade rumors, we still here. Um, but yeah, like the soap opera that's the NBA, man, just keeps on giving it. It's been a hell of a week, like crazy trades, wild rumors. Like Dallas going to Vegas, or the Mavericks going to Vegas potentially.
Oh, the conspiracy hats, the tinfoil
Yeah,
hats
man.
on already.
Yeah, unreal. And then my favorite part of this whole week, or one off, is RDC World dropped the LeBron skin. So I was onto that this morning, so that was unreal. Funny as always. How are you, man?
Good, good. I mean, the reactions to the trade deadline have been so good. Everyone's got their opinions. Obviously, the big Luka trade. I mean, I just remember like waking up from my nap and literally the first thing I saw was that. And I was just like, what the hell is this? Like, what's going like talk about a plot twist in the soap opera that we call the NBA.
Everyone was in disbelief, bro.
Exactly. Like I was in disbelief. You were probably in disbelief.
Like, I
Everyone in
called Shams
Dallas.
Sham Charania just because.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's bad when he sends that initial tweet out and everyone thought he got hacked. And then he sends the second tweet which says, yes, this is real, which makes it even more sus that it's probably like fake and he got hacked. But it's true. Luka did get traded. That's probably the big storyline out of all this. Now, I've already said my piece in terms of my thoughts on the trade, but I wanted to hand it over to you, Rav, because we haven't heard from you about what your thoughts are on this whole thing. So, I guess, what did you make of this entire situation?
I think Mark Cuban probably summed it up pretty well, didn't he, when he was part owner of the Dallas team?
Mm-hmm.
If he had to pick between Luca and getting a divorce, he said he's going to pick pick Lucas. But yeah, man, it was a really interesting decision. Like why they would trade Luca. I guess they want to win now, but it doesn't make sense because there's a lot of holes in this trade. Like when you look at the completion of it, Kyrie isn't a ball heavy guard. Like in terms of he has to be that secondary guy, especially like later in his career, and hasn't like been the primary ball handler for a wee while now. So interesting. And the I was really liking the Gafford and the Lively partnership up the front. But then adding AD, yes, adds a bit of depth, but where does that leave Lively amongst it? Because Gafford's been playing a hell of a role lately. Um, but yeah, it's stupid, probably the word. From Nico Harrison, 25-year-old superstar, who's made 5 All NBA teams since he started in 2018 for AD. Like, that's literally going all in and hoping for the best. And yeah, Nico Harris unfortunately has to pay the repercussions of that. He has to. I saw this morning he had to hire some security for him and his home just because he was getting death threats. So
Yeah.
some very proud Texan fans over there.
Yeah, I mean, you knew it was bad when they brought out a casket in front of their own arena. Like they're treating the whole thing as a funeral, which yes is sad. Like you've given up the superstar, your franchise cornerstone for the next 10, 15 years, to basically create I say a 3 to 4 year window to try and win a championship with these guys like AD, Kyrie, Clay Thompson. Yes, all these guys have won a championship in their careers, so that's great experience to have. But yeah, giving up on Luka and like the reasoning behind it too, that like his conditioning wasn't up to standard. They didn't want to pay him the
Who cares, man?
supermax. Yeah, they didn't want to spend like I think it was 350 the supermax for him, 350 mil. Which yes, it's a lot, but it's Luka Doncic. He's a top 5 player in this league. Like, why would you
And they're
not
just
invest
fresh
in
off
that?
a finals run.
Exactly. You talked about
Like,
win now. Like they just came
yeah,
from the finals.
it's reminiscent of what like almost the Timberwolves did. Do you know? Like, made a great run, traded one of their franchise players. So interesting. Do
It
you
is
reckon
what it
it's
is. But
scripted? Just while I got you there.
the conspiracy is already like,
Mate, honestly, I've got my tinfoil hat on. This is unbelievable.
you've
Like,
gone deep down the rabbit hole already.
yeah, hell yeah, man. Like looking at this, like Lakers has had a star every generation, going all the way back to Jerry West. Because I wrote down the names of Jerry West, Kareem, Magic, Shaq, Kobe, LeBron, and now Luka.
Mm.
So I mean,
I
Lakers are
yeah.
yeah. What do you reckon?
I mean, I think I'm going to say no. I'm going to try keep my I'm going to try stay level-headed on this, but um, I mean, yeah, as you mentioned, you rattled those names down. Luka's the next one in line, so yeah, maybe the Lakers were after a face, and it's good for business as well if you're Los Angeles. Um, but it's funny to me that Dallas approached the Lakers offering Luka. Like, talk about a fleece! Like they just fleeced themselves by making that initial approach. So before we completely move on, like, do you think the Mavs were winners or losers coming out of this trade deadline? Because I've seen a lot of mixed feelings about how people feel after the trade or after the moves that they made.
I think I'm sitting on the fence, bro. Like in all honesty, because they acquired Caleb. Was it Caleb or Cody? From the Sixers, one of the Martin twins.
Caleb. Yep.
Caleb, yeah. So he's coming back from injury and got got finals exposure. So if they're able to wrangle something together and Kyrie becomes that facilitator for these guys, I think they can make a deep push. But yeah, no, I don't think it's enough to move the needle. In all honesty, so I think they are going to end up as losers, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, even that Martin trade was questionable because they gave away Quinton Grimes, who I thought was having
Exactly.
a pretty nice season for Dallas. I would have liked to see Grimes and Max Christie team up together because I think they're pretty similar vein in terms of the types of players, like young 3 and D combo guards or guards wings. But no, obviously they've moved on. They want to go win now, and they're going all in. So hopefully things pay off for Nico Harrison. But yeah, enough of the Luka trade. Enough of Dallas and Lakers for now. The Aaron Fox, asking you shall receive. He's gone to San Antonio, his preferred destination. He gets to team up with Wemby. The Spurs managed to keep a lot of their assets, which is probably the big takeaway from all this. But part of this multi-team trade, Zach LaVine goes to Sacramento to the Bulls. Actually managed to get rid of those big money, one of their big money contracts. Probably not.
I've got one in return though. So.
Yeah, we'll talk about the Bulls soon. But in terms of the Aaron Fox, excuse me, in terms of the Aaron Fox going to San Antonio, this is great for the young core that's in San Antonio, right?
Yeah, man. I'm gonna say something wild here. Take one of my takes. I reckon San Antonio is gonna win in 2027-28 season. Like I'm gonna make that call right now. 8th of Feb
We
2025.
We're talking 2, 3 seasons away.
Yeah.
While we've got the Thunder and the Rockets and the Grizzlies in that Western Conference. You reckon Spurs
Yeah, man. I
can
reckon.
come out? Okay.
I reckon. I back him. Yeah.
Why is that? What makes you think that?
I mean, off the start, like Fox had an unbelievable start, like 24 points, 13 assists, 5 rebounds, 3 steals, on 50% shooting with Wemby, and I was watching some highlights, and some guy in the comments was like, it seemed like every time Fox missed, Wemby was just there to clean up. So I think that's a great like guard and big man duo, which would work well down the line. And both are like Fox is 27 in the prime of his career. Wemby is coming into his own, having a historic season himself. And they got really young like players around them. You got Devin Vassell, who's 24, Stefan Castle, who we're both big fans of, is 20, and the fact that they were able to keep him in this trade is massive. Like, and they kept CP3, so that veteran leadership is important for this team when they want to look at winning in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a great move for the Aaron Fox. It's a great move for the Spurs in terms of what the other teams in this trade got. The Kings and the Bulls. The Kings, I think we see that. Well, we have mentioned in the past that if the Aaron Fox did get traded, that there was the possibility that they could do a rebuild. It looks as though they're still looking to compete because of the acquisition of Zach LaVine. LaVine and DeRozan get to reunite from their time in Chicago, so now they're in Sacramento together. I guess, what do you make of this whole Kings lineup that they've got now? Because now you've got Malik Monk, who looks like is going to take over the point guard reins for now.
They need a player. I think they should have gotten a playmaker for Living, in all honesty, because they've got a lot of scoring. Like that backcourt is more or less shooting guards. And when you put DeMar DeRozan in that shooting guard bracket as well, that is a lot of like scoring output available, defense lacking, especially when you have Domantas Sabonis up the front as well, not the greatest defensive big. So they they can probably score 140, 150 points a game, but
Hmm?
they will also end up giving up a hell of a lot more. So and I don't believe Malik Monk is a good enough of a facilitator to be able to support the team.
Yeah. I guess from this trade, they also managed to get 3 firsts and 3 seconds. The 3 firsts don't really mean a lot. Like that 25 Hornets first is the top 14 protected, which isn't so that's not going to turn into anything for the Kings. But that does turn into 2 second rounders if that's the case. I guess the only first round pick that really could be interesting is that 2031 Timberwolves. If all of a sudden things go um, pear shaped with Ant Edwards and he gets something happens to him, he gets shipped off all of a sudden like Luka does at a young age. So that's probably the most interesting one. In terms of, oh gosh, Chicago, what are they doing? Seriously, like they enter the trade deadline mid, they leave still mid. They don't know whether they want to go into a full rebuild or not. And they didn't even get as much as they should have out of this whole Levine trade.
Could have gone more, man. I think shop around a little bit. It seems like he had to facilitate this De'Aaron Fox going to the Spurs deal in a sense. But yeah, no, know what they're up to over there in Chicago. But also like Vooch is still on the roster. Like, why didn't you try ship him off somewhere? Like could have made a nicer haul. Like maybe Lakers even because the nice little pairing: Mark Williams, Vooch, Luka. Well, LeBron as well, obviously. But yeah, re-signed Lonzo Ball and did I don't know. They're kind of in a weird spot at the moment, like trying to make the play in. Hopefully they do over the Sixers, and I'm gonna stick to that just to give you a bit of shit.
That's fine. I mean, Bulls are still a terrible organization, but like the most valuable thing they got back was their own first round pick that was with the Spurs. Like I don't know why they even gave that up in the first place. Um, I think it was to do with the DeRozan trade, but I have to look back on that. But the fact that they had to get that back, and that was the most valuable thing that they got out of this whole transaction, says a lot about Chicago and how they're doing. But hey, mid's gonna stay mid at this point, so good luck to Chicago. Another trade, Jimmy Butler is gone to Golden State. The Jimmy Butler Miami Heat saga is officially over after all the suspensions and all the shade thrown by Jimmy Butler over the last few months. He gets his wish to be traded, not to the Phoenix Suns, but to the Golden State Warriors. So he'll team up with Steph Curry and Draymond over there. Big multi-team trade, about 4 teams involved in this one. But I guess the main points out of this: Andrew Wiggins goes to Miami. You got Pistons. Dennis Schroeder ends up in Detroit. But other than that, there's a whole lot of other moving pieces as well. But the main one, Jimmy Butler to Golden State. I mean, the fact that that's the conclusion to this whole saga is quite. Yeah, I don't know. I feel a little bit underwhelmed by that. That was the conclusion to all this. But how do you feel that this is where he's ended up?
Yeah, that's probably a good word for it, to be honest. Because we were expecting Beal to be part of this trade, and him ended up in the Suns. Everyone expected him to be at the Suns. But unfortunately, it didn't work out. Interesting again, it's just because it's a very aging roster. They did keep a few of their young pieces, but I wasn't the biggest fan of giving up Andrew Wiggins because I think defensively, Andrew Wiggins is a lot better because of the season that he's having right now over Jimmy Butler, unless Jimmy decides to turn that around. And yeah, supply. I mean, offensively, we know what Jimmy can do. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how he fits along the side. And I think he's excited to be there because there was like this, I guess, perk up in his attitude in the press conference that he gave. So yeah, fingers crossed. Fingers
Yeah, he
crossed that
did.
they
He did
turn
take
up.
the high road.
Mm.
Like he thanked the Heat organization for his 5.5 seasons there, which is that's good for Jimmy Butler. He was able to be the bigger man and move on. But that's probably
Apparently, Pat
because
Riley cried, bro. I don't know if you heard that in one,
O-
I guess, exit interview, maybe.
Okay, well maybe that
Yeah.
says a lot about the relationship there. Despite what was being reported out there, that Pat Riley and Jimmy Butler did have a respectful relationship between them. But Jimmy ended up signing 2 years, 111 million contract extension with the Warriors, so he does get his big money with the Warriors. Um, but we'll see how things end up. But I'm quite excited about Andrew Wiggins going to Miami because he'll become the third option behind Tyler Hero and Bam, which I think is pretty much a similar role to what he was doing in Golden State. Like I think he was the second slash third option in Golden State, so he doesn't have to change much about his game, and he'll offer something defensively if he can recapture that form from that 2022 season when they won the Warriors won the chip. Then yeah, Miami can definitely be dangerous come playoff time.
Especially
And
with
they
Killer Ware as well. Like, just got to shut him out too. He's been playing really well. So nice little fall there for the Heat. So yeah,
yeah. And also, Davion Mitchell, I don't know if you've seen, but Davion Mitchell's gone to the Miami Heat as well. So that's quite a sneaky move there. I think someone like Eric Spoelstra can definitely bring the best out of a young defensive dog like Davion. So that's a nice move for him. And Dennis Schroeder ends up in his seventh team since the 2020-21 season. He got traded 3 times in 24 hours after calling the trade deadline modern slavery. So he was the prime example. He was the exhibit A of that phrase. So he's been moved around, and yeah, obviously things did not work out in Golden State. But he can definitely offer some veteran scoring and playmaking to Detroit, a young team with K Cunningham that's trying to reach the playoffs. So we'll
and
see
plug that gap left by Jaden Ivey as well off the back of his injury.
exactly. So that's not a bad replacement to have. Brandon Ingram's gone to the Toronto Raptors. We said that this was likely going to be the destination for him because of the talks. Good move for the Raptors, considering we've been talking about them as ethical, well, being involved in ethical tanking, and now they make this move for Brandon Ingram to team up with Scotty Barnes and RJ Barrett. Like, do you get what the Raptors are trying to do here?
No, I think similar sense as the Kings. You know, like they've got three small forwards. RJ Scott. I mean, Scotty plays more of a power forward, 3-4 type, and then Bi. That's yeah. If I was the Raptors GM, I personally would have tried getting a point guard because I'm not the biggest fan of Quickly, even though they chose him to be the franchise guy. Hasn't really turned out to be that way.
He's just been
But
hurt, I think. That's the thing with Quickly. And I think like their backup, they obviously have a lot of faith in Jamal Shed, who's the next guy up. So that's probably yeah. And I mean, it would have been nice if they kept Davion Mitchell, but obviously they shipped him off. So yeah, I think point guards probably they're probably banking on the draft and banking on getting the high pick or someone to develop.
yeah, so hopefully the ethical tanking pays off for them. I mean, they also ended up getting James Wiseman from the Pacers for a bit of cash and I think a pick from memory, or yeah, can't remember. But yeah, nice young kind of group. Maybe they could have shipped off Jakob Pertl, who's having a great season, to a contender and maybe gotten something else in return as well. So yeah, um, don't know where they stand at the moment, and they would be ended up paying Bi a hell of a lot more because his contract extension's coming up. So be
Yeah,
interesting to see where that leaves him.
yeah, it does look like yeah, Bi is gonna. His intention is to sign a contract extension and stay in Toronto. Otherwise, they wouldn't have made that move in the first place. The biggest move for biggest concern is probably health with Bi. Like he hasn't played since early December because of his ankle. So, I mean, the Raptors they don't need to rush him back or anything because right now their draft pick is like a top 5 draft pick. So they don't need to rush him back and you know get some unnecessary wins when they don't need to. They can continue the ethical tank. So I kind of understand what the Raptors are doing, but I guess on the surface it is a bit of a weird one. But we'll see how things go with Bi in Toronto. Let's talk about a big move. Well, not a big move. This move didn't even happen, but the fact that these discussions even took place. I think the Phoenix Suns have come out as one of the bigger losers out of this trade deadline because they've put Kevin Durant, they've blindsided him and put him in trade conversations when he didn't want to be involved in trade conversations. Now, I think the Luka trade showed that no one is untouchable in the NBA. I think Kevin Durant probably felt that he was secure in Phoenix, but the fact that they had to put him up, it's not going to be good for the team moving forward. And I think at this point, it's safe to say that KD's future in Phoenix is uncertain. But I guess, what do you think about the trade rumors surrounding him? The fact that he rejected that move, that reunion with the Golden State Warriors. Um, yeah, not a good place to be in if you're Phoenix and KD.
No, I think Suns should look at blowing this up at the end of the season because it's obviously not working out. Book probably needs to shoot off, and he's in his prime right now. Got He can contribute really well to a team, so yeah, he needs to go. Katie's at the later end of his career, go to a contributing, contending team. And Beal, I don't know, man. Do what you want to do. You're one of the most powerful men in the NBA. But the KD to Warriors thing was really interesting because he didn't want to team up with Draymond. So, which is fair enough. I mean, Draymond has been known to be like a toxic person in the locker room. So, interested they went and add Jimmy Butler, who's another strong personality,
Yeah, that's
into
going to be
that.
fun. I can't wait for the reports out of Golden State about those two butting heads.
Be brilliant. Yeah, but yeah, I think that is really bad from the Phoenix Suns. Just I feel like just because the Mavs did it doesn't mean you have to do it as well. You know, I feel like they might have, yeah, felt like they needed to trade anyone and yeah, try salvage the season rather. So yeah, tough for KD because he wants to stay in Phoenix.
But they didn't even improve the roster at the trade deadline. Like the only big move they made was getting rid of Yusuf Nurkic, and to do that they had to add a first round pick to Charlotte, which is silly.
I mean, they
Like, yeah,
got
you
Nick
want to get
Richards. I'll give him that.
yeah, but I don't think Nick Richards is a big that like moves the needle. I think he's a solid person to have in the front court, but I wouldn't say he's a center that moves the needle. And also, there was that sneaky trade they tried to do where they gave up a first rounder for about three firsts in the future, which I think they were planning to use as some sort of ammo to make a big move. But they didn't even use that, so now they're just holding on to those assets for for some. Yeah, well, I mean, we'll see what they're going to do with that. I think everyone's going to point the finger at Bradley Beal, but it's not his fault. Like, he has a no trade clause in his contract. It's really the team that gave it to him, the Wizards, should get blamed for it. Well, not they shouldn't get blamed. It's the Phoenix Suns that should get blamed because they traded for that contract and they knew what they were getting themselves into. They tried to go all in with this big three of KD, Booker, and Beal, and it hasn't panned out. And now Phoenix is dealing with the consequences. So it's not Bradley Beal's fault at all. He just happens to have a lot of power on his side. But yes, I think the Suns were sort of backed into a corner, and they looked at Beal and there's no trade clause in his contract. Devin Booker being the face of the team, and they felt, well, we'll see what if there's anything out there for KD. So, but that is not good for team morale moving forward. And you talked about the reunion with the Warriors. I think the other thing that doesn't get talked about, I think the other reason why he wouldn't want to go back to Golden State is I think he wants to prove that he can win a championship on his own team. Because if he goes back to Golden State and wins a third title, then people are going to say, oh, it's because he's teaming up with Steph, and Steph's pretty much leading the way. It's him and Steph who are leading this
But
team.
it's time though, bro. You know, like you're what 30s right now, so you almost have to. Like, I feel like he's past that window of trying to carry a team to a chip. Like he's not Kareem. I mean, Kareem had magic too. So like, you need someone who is going to contribute. And unfortunately, Devin Booker hasn't been that guy this season. So
But I think, I
if
mean,
I, yeah,
we don't know what KD's thinking, right? Like, he knows that when he made that move to Golden State way back when, that everyone like pointed the finger at him, everyone like hated him, like he was the biggest villain in the NBA because he joined the championship winning squad. And I think there's still some like air around there in the back of his mind that, you know, people aren't gonna think as much of me because I teamed up with Steph and Clay and Draymond and won a chip with them. Like, I need to be able to show I can lead my own team. And it didn't work out in Brooklyn. It didn't work out in Phoenix. So I mean, yeah, I don't know what the future holds for KD at this point. So, um, but I mean, I personally think like KD to me is like a top 15, 20 all time player.
All the time.
So yeah, that doesn't impact how I feel about KD as a basketball player. But yeah, sticky situation for Phoenix to be in. So we'll see how things pan out for them. Another team that sort of found themselves on the losing side of the trade deadline is the Atlanta Hawks. Specifically, Trey Young. Like if you're watching all these moves happen and you realize your team's shipped off a couple of key guys from your bench and they haven't helped you at all, especially after losing Jalen Johnson, then yeah, you must feel pretty bad about your future in Atlanta moving forward. What do you make of the moves that Atlanta made at the trade deadline?
Trey needs to bounce, bro. He needs to go. Like, I think the Hawks need to go into full rebuild mode. But this is probably one of the worst moves that, like, a team has made this deadline. Like, giving up DeAndre Hunter, who's probably your second best scoring option now, especially with Jalen Johnson's injury, for Karis LeVert, Georges Niang, and three second round picks and two pick swaps. Like, yes, you got a Karis LeVert who can score, but DeAndre Hunter is having a six man of the year campaign this year. Like, he is pushing that spot. So I don't know what they're trying to do. Like, this is stupid. And also giving up Bogey. Like, Bogey's a solid player. I'm wrapped as a Clippers fan. We got a
Yeah,
good
we
scoring.
can't complain.
Yeah, no, definitely not. But from a Hawks perspective, like, what the hell are they doing? You know,
They've
like,
given up. That's what it
literally.
is. They lost Jalen
And
Johnson and they've given up
yeah,
on the season.
and it just goes from bad to worse for Trey, man. Like, All Star snub, we talk about a little bit here and there, like it's contingent on certain factors. And the fact that your team is not supporting you to, help win, and then probably the prime, he's the best, I guess I'm just gonna say probably the best playmaker in the game. But this is really bad. This is terrible from the Hawks.
Yeah, he doesn't have much time left on his contract, so he can enter free agency in a year or two if he chooses to. I think the Hawks must have felt that because DeAndre Hunter, especially, is having like a career year, like he's been great, like sixth man of the year contender. They probably felt let's just get rid of him at his highest value. They ended up trading him to the Cleveland Cavaliers, which I guess on that side of things, what a get for the Cavs.
Awesome.
Like that starting five is insane now, and also
But would you
sneaky.
have DeAndre Hunter coming off the bench, or would you have him starting?
I personally would have him off the bench, but I think they will start him. But they do have plenty of like wing options there, like Isaac Okoro is there, Dean Wade, so they can choose to start like an Okoro and then decide to bring Hunter and Ty Jerome
Touch your
off the
own, yeah.
bench.
Yeah, for sure.
Which fun fact, they went to college together. So there's that ticks off my college teammate reunion there. So I think they won a natty together at Virginia. So that's a nice reunion for those two. But yeah, I guess all in all, a great get for the Cavs. But if you're the Hawks and if you're Trey Young, then yeah, your future of the organization is not looking too bright. And I guess we're going to look at the whole Luka Trey trade on draft day and say who won the trade. Like I think when that Luka trade was first made, people thought, oh yeah, Trey Young's won the trade now because he's still on this team. And now trade deadline has passed and Trey's future's very questionable at this point. So at this point, I don't know who won that trade. I'd say it's probably the most even trade in NBA history.
Yeah, has to be, has to be. But yeah, man,
Um,
it's a shame that it feels like LeBron and the Cavs like not really putting decent players. So off the similar notes, we've seen that in the past. Trey needs to go somewhere that needs a solid point guard.
well, it would have been the Spurs because I think the Spurs had him as an option, but then the Aaron Fox sort of just fell into their lap because the Aaron Fox came out and said, "I want to go to the Spurs." So that was just easy for them to get. Otherwise, I think they would have gone for a guy like Trey Young, and that would have been a nice duo of Trey and Wimby. But oh well, it is what it is. So all the best to Trey, but he's had a rough season off the court. We'll briefly touch on the Washington Wizards because I think they had a really sneaky good trade deadline. Like they were quite active. They made about 4 moves. And I think each one they got a first round pick back of some sort. They got rid of Valanciunas, they got rid of Kuzma, who were probably two of their bigger trade pieces they needed to give up. So they got their job done. They got Chris Middleton and Marcus Smart in return, who I don't think they'll play a lot. Like they're really just there to be veterans for the young roster. But they could also, like Marcus Smart, could also be a buyout candidate for a contending team. So we'll see what happens there. But now they can fully focus on their young core that they've got there. They add AJ Johnson, who was the Bucks' first round pick. But look at this draft capital through 2031. The Wizards now have 11 first round picks, 12 second round picks, and 3 pick swaps. So we talk about the Thunder having all these draft picks. Like the Wizards are doing quite well for themselves, getting all these draft picks. And also they had a 3-game win streak this week. So
Unheard
I
of.
mean everything's going right for them on and off the court. Hey, so what a great week to be a Wizards fan. Unfortunately, it might be the only week to be. It might be the only week where you're going to have a great time as a Wizards fan. So, um, and finally, I mean, it'd be rude not to talk about the moves that our Clippers made. We traded away Terrence Mann, Bones Highland, and KPJ, but we did get Bogdan Bogdanovic and Marjon Beauchamp. I mean, what do you make of these moves? Does it make us better? Does it help us in any way? What were your takeaways?
I think the KPJ thing, you probably save some money. That's probably the only thing. Like you add a, yeah, you get rid of a scorer. Marjon Beauchamp, a solid defender. So yeah, happy he's on the team. Bogey as well. Then in return, you get a good scorer. And unfortunately, Terrence Mann hasn't lived up to who we thought he was going to be. And
He peaked in that, was it game 6 of the
1920,
21
yeah, yeah, something like that.
second round where he helped the team beat the Jazz? Yeah, like I think he just peaked, which is a shame. But he'll always have that game.
Yeah, 100%. And Bones Highland, man, like massive fan of him, but unfortunately he was not part of the rotation. And hopefully, yeah, he can make something work in Atlanta. Um, Depends on how the organisation goes. So we already know that how much of a circus that is over there. But I don't think this makes the team better. I wouldn't say like we wouldn't move the needle, but just enough to, yeah, make a few splashes here and there.
Yeah, as long as we don't get blown out again, like we did with the Lakers earlier this week,
Yeah,
the Battle of
yeah,
LA.
that's it. Yeah,
Luka wasn't even playing, but
no,
somehow Luka's still messing with the Clippers.
it's
He was
LeBron,
just
bro. Man's
it is
40.
LeBron.
He's just dominating.
It is LeBron, but it's also Luka's aura on the bench. Uh,
It's too
like
much. It's too
these
much for me.
the Battle of LAs are going to be sick over the next decade or so with
Yeah.
Luka around. So looking forward to that. Finally, before we finish things off, the All Stars, they've picked their teams. Now, I'll be honest, I sort of just shut off once the All Stars have been named. But Rav, you kept an eye on the draft this week, and some pretty interesting teams that came out of it from Shaq, Chuck, and Kenny, who were in charge. Um, tell us what were your thoughts? What stood out to you?
I think Kenny went off his meds or took too much of his meds. Like, mate, like that team is horrific. Like he had two All Star starters. Yeah, I think he had two All Star starters in general. Period. Like, part of me thinks that this was staged because it was like literally the Avengers team lining up again under Shaq, Chuck picking the international guys, and Kenny obviously going for the young guys. Like, yeah, interesting. Like, um, Carl Anthony Towns and Donovan Mitchell, both starters in the East, were the last two picks in Chuck's team. Like, that was horrific. Like, how do you let that happen?
Well, it just goes to show that the starters don't matter.
It doesn't matter, but also, I don't know, I think it's scripted, bro. Like, I think genuinely scripted.
Oh,
Just to
he's
try
back
to
with the
bring it.
tinfoil, the
Yeah,
conspiracy.
it's stayed on this season, episode 20, tinfoil. But yeah, also like weekend's coming up this weekend, so looking forward to how these like I guess three teams play against the Rising Stars. So yeah, be a good watch.
Because it's All Star Weekend, and I usually don't care. I would not be surprised if Team Kenny's team actually somehow won out of all this. Like, I don't know, we've seen some crazy things happen when it comes to All Stars, so we'll see what happens. But And also you've got the fourth team, that Rising Stars, whoever comes out of that as well. So um, yeah, yeah. Oh well, All Star Weekend's coming up. Hip hip hooray!
So enthused about it.
Yeah, no, I am. Okay, I need to take some meds now, to be honest. Quick fire. We'll finish things off with the quick fire as we always do. A bit of a jam-packed one this week, so 60 seconds, Rav. I will ask the first question, so here we go in three, two, one. Rav, which team had the biggest missed opportunity to improve their team at the trade deadline?
I think Utah Jazz. Which player are you surprised didn't get traded at the deadline?
It's the Utah Jazz players, Clarkson, Sexton, and John Collins. So, which dunker has the best chance to stop Mac McClung from three-peating in the dunk contest?
I'm going Andre Jackson Jr. Which player will be a key buyout candidate for a contending team, Eli?
I reckon Ben Simmons. I reckon a change of scenery could do good for him, and he can help someone out. Rav, Portland are 10-1 in their last 11 games. Do you think they can make the play-in?
No.
He thought about it.
Yeah, I thought about it. No. Who will win the 3-point contest during All Star Weekend, Eli?
Tyler Hero. He's going to stop Lillard from getting this three-peat. Rav, what will Luka's stat line be in his first game as a Laker?
I'm going 25, 5, and 8. How about you?
I'm going to go 28-9. That's all the time we have for today's episode. Rav, let's just briefly congratulate ourselves for 20 episodes of this podcast. Let's give ourselves a pat on the back and all. But thank you guys for tuning in and listening. Please follow us on our social media platforms on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube and Spotify as well. But until then, well, actually, one more thing we should probably say is that next week we won't have an episode. It is the All-Star break, so we're going to give ourselves a little bit of an All-Star break as well. So yeah, we'll be back after the All-Star break, all refreshed and all rejuvenated to keep chopping up some yarns about the NBA. So until then, we got next and Matiwa.